We will call the meeting to order. We will begin tonight. As you all know, Bill Thompson accepted an employment out of town, so he's no longer on the board. And after consideration, Brian Lewis was our new board member. And we've already had the oath of office and acceptance already signed and on file. However, we will go through the ceremonial oath of office and acceptance of the office as listed on page 2 or 3. We'll begin with the clerk reading the oath of office, and then Brian will stand up and swear and affirm his pledge. So,
You want us both to stand?
huh?
Would you like us both to stand?
One more time?
Would you like us both to stand?
No, you don't.
Okay.
You don't. Don't swear, Brian.
It is an honor that you were elected to guide the education of our community's children. As you recite the oath of office, you assume a tremendous responsibility as a director of our schools district with the duties empowered by the Minnesota legislator. This power puts you and the other members of our school board in the position of being both morally and legally responsible for equitable, quality education for every student in the district. In carrying out this responsibility, you will be asked to fulfill the roles of vision, structure, accountability, and advocacy. In providing vision, the board, with extensive participation of the community, envisions the community's educational future and then formulates the goals, defines the outcomes, and sets the course for the public school. To achieve the vision, the board establishes a structure and creates an environment designed to ensure all students the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework. Because as a board, we must be accountable to the community. We must ensure a continuous assessment of student achievement and all conditions affecting the education of our children. As board members, we serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community's school to advance the vision for our schools. Furthermore, we must strive to work together with the superintendent and the staff to lead the district toward fulfilling the vision we have created, fostering excellence for every student in areas of academic skills and knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Would you just read that opening sentence leading into his affirmation?
Having signed the acceptance of office, the oath of office, goodness, I hereby publicly affirm your commitment to the oath of office.
I affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of this state, and that I will discharge faithfully the duties of the office of School Board Member of Independent School District Number 252 to the best of my judgment and ability.
Okay, having read and accepted,
Welcome.
congratulations. Brian, as I recall, will be filling out the term of Bill, correct? Mm-hmm. And that next year? Okay. Thank you for stepping forward on behalf of the school. Okay, all board members are present and accounted for. Will everyone please stand, face the flag, as we say the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Sampson, do you have anything, additions, deletions, amendments to the agenda?
No, I don't.
Okay. Having heard that, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda as shown.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Clint on the motion, Jolynn on the second. Further discussion? All in favor of the acceptance of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Scheduled presenters. Jeff, I'll hand this over to you.
Yes, we have Darren Sievers from School Perceptions. As many of you know, we took a community survey this past fall, and it's the first one that we've had since, well, it's the second one that I've had since I've been here, since that first year I was here. And this is a follow-up, and we will continue to do follow-ups every 3, 4, 5 years, whatever is appropriate, to where we need to reset our aim for our district. At this point, I'd like to introduce Darren Sievers from School Perceptions, who should be recognizable because he's been here before as well. So, welcome, Darren.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. All right, well, tonight I'm here, a very different presentation than the last time we got together. The last time we got together, we talked about your staff, student, and parent survey feedback. Today, we're going to talk about your community feedback relative to the facility enhancement that you're considering. Very different project. We mailed the survey to your community, and I'm going to walk you through an overview of the presentation tonight right now. So I'm going to give you a little background information about our company, and then we'll dive right into your survey results and talk about where things are trending as we stand here today. Real briefly, our company has been in existence for 21 years. We've done over 10,000 staff, parent, and student surveys for all geared towards school improvement. And this last bullet point probably needs to be updated very soon because we're just about to cross the 1,000 district line as far as the number of districts we've helped planning for referendums. As far as deploying your survey, we mailed the survey to every resident in the Cannon Falls School District. Parents and staff were also emailed a survey link so they could take it via their phone or their device. But every survey had a one-time usage code, so there would be no way for people to stuff the ballot box for or against. So once a code is used, it never can be used again. And it's a completely confidential process. So let's start talking about Cannon Falls results. So we had the deadline of October 9th, and it typically takes us about a week and a half, 2 weeks to compile our findings. You had a very good response in Cannon Falls. 738 people took the survey, and that puts you at a 20% response rate. And the statistical reliability of 738 respondents is 3.68% for margin for error. So the results I'm going to present to you later are plus or minus 3%, given the number of respondents. Just so you know, you did cross two very important benchmarks as far as reliability. As a company, having done this for 20 years, we always look for 500 as one benchmark that we really like to see, and you eclipse that by a lot. But we always like to see more than 10% of your of the surveys mailed returned, and you doubled that. So I feel very, very confident about the data that we present later on. As far as the demographics of the people that responded to the survey, the largest respondent age group were your parents, the 36 to 45-year-olds. And that's no surprise because they have the most to gain. They probably have the kids in the system who are going to benefit the most from the projects that were being proposed. Not so different, the 46 to 55-year-olds. That tends to be the parent range as well. And then typically we do see the second or third largest group is the 65 plus. Those are your retirees. They tend to be on a fixed income, and they're most sensitive to any tax increase. And quite honestly, they turn out at the highest percentage at the polls to vote. And that's really why we offer our services. We want to give you a projection of what your community support would be if you put this to a vote. I was talking to Jeff about this the other day. As we stand here as a company in Minnesota, we are still at a 100% predictability rate. If our data shows that something has support, we've never been wrong. But also, if we said that a project didn't have support and a board put it forward anyway, it has failed every time as well. So our data has been quite reliable. In Wisconsin, where we got started near the Milwaukee suburbs, we're at 95% across our hundreds and hundreds of projects. So I feel pretty confident about the process we have in place and the data we're going to share tonight. Of those that replied to the survey, 93% were residents. Now you may ask, well, if you mailed it to residents only, how could anyone but a resident take it? What's the 7%? Well, that is staff that we asked to weigh in on this that may not live in Cannon Falls, but they work there. That could also be open enrollment parents who choose to send their kids to Cannon Falls rather than their neighborhood school district, but they can't vote. Or it could be property owners that got the survey in their mailbox, but they also do not reside there, thus they cannot vote. So going forward, we will only be looking at the data relative to that 93% of the people that live in the school district and can vote talked to Jeff. This seems to be very representative of populace. 46% being from the city of Cannon Falls, the township of Cannon Falls, and so on. And then next up, we did ask a question about whether they owned agricultural land, because that's part of the tax impact that we're measuring as well. 22% said they did. And then within the respondents, 55% of the respondents were parents. But very important for you to hear right now as part of the presentation, only 25% of your community are parents. So almost by over a 2-to-1 margin, parents replied to the survey at a higher rate than what they represent to the population. And we need to account for that later on, because even though they're excited about the projects and they responded to the survey, only 1 in 4 of your voters are parents. And when it comes to staff, 12% of your respondents were staff members, but less than, typically around 0.8% of a population in a community are staff members. So they're very motivated to take the survey, but they're not numerous as far as how many voters could show up in favor of it from the staff side of things. And we account for that when we get projections as well. And finally, of the 55% who said that they're parents, this was the distribution of the parents who replied. 54% were elementary parents, and so on. And as you see, that adds up to much more than 100%, and that's because they oftentimes have kids in multiple buildings. So on to your survey. We really proposed a very straightforward project. Project 1 was the outdoor activities project, and the elements that were included at a cost of $8.8 million. And then we included a conceptual image with an accompanying key so they can see all the things that would be happening at the campus. And then we also added a very valuable second project, costly but important traffic flow solution at $1.1 million to enhance the pickup and drop off the congestion that comes with the end of the day and the start of the day. And as a former superintendent in this Milwaukee area, if you recall, I was a superintendent for 9 years before I took this job in the past year and a half. You sometimes wonder, does anybody ride the bus anymore? Because so many people are driving to and from school in cars. But that's just modern pace of life and reality of congestion that comes with that. And then we did educate them, and that's probably one of the most important things with our surveys is educate them on what you're thinking, and then educate them on what the cost of the project would be. So, how did they respond? This next slide is a lot of numbers, so I'm going to really try to simplify this. The navy blue bar are the people that are supportive of Project 1 in isolation, or Project 1 and 2 from the staff. Light blue bar are the parents. Purple bar are the non-parents, non-staff, but they make up 75% of your community. So the purple graphic is the most important graphic on this slide, because those are the non-parents, non-staff. They don't work there, they don't have kids in the system, but they're 3 out of 4 of your voters. So if we look at that, 28% of those people were in favor of both projects. And if you take the 28% plus the 6%, 34% then would have been in favor of Project 1 for sure in isolation. So that's why you add those together, because they would support Project 1 or Project 1 and 2. And then when it comes to the parents, who are 25% of your populace, 54% voted for both. But if you take the 54 and add that together with the 8 of just Project 1, 62% would have supported just Project 1 by itself. The problem with this graphic is that 51% of your non-parents, non-staff are against both projects. So anytime we see a project with a no vote north of 50%, that is a sign that we don't have support. So what I'm going to show you on the next graphic is I'm going to combine those data points. Again, we're going to take the light blues, that are in favor of Project 1 and the purples in Project 1 and weight them based on their population. So we take the 8% and the 54% of light blue, and then the 6% and the 28% of the purples, and we weight them. And if we had to project today what the vote would be if you put this referendum as is at 8.8 million for just the outdoor activities project, we would project 41% support plus or minus the 3.6% margin of error that we talked about statistically at the beginning of the presentation. And while we never promised this, we oftentimes are very, very close to these projections. My experience with my district when I did a $43 million project back in 2016 with the company, that's how I got to know the company, is I did the same type of survey. We were within 1.5% the vote of what the survey predicted. So then if we go back to this graphic and we say, well, what is the support just for Project 1 and 2? How close were we there? Well, then you just take the blue bar at 54% and just take the purple bar at 28%, and we weighted. I shared those results with Jeff, and we talked a little bit about what the next steps are. But I'm going to continue with my presentation and take any questions at the end, because to your credit as board, you didn't just survey about money, you didn't just survey about facilities, you also asked them how things are going. And this is a mirror study of questions that you did in 2020, and now 3 years later, we're doing a follow-up on several things, achieving excellence. So you asked them to tell you how you are doing as far as using technology to enhance learning, providing a safe learning environment. All these questions were asked on a scale of 1 to 4. So ideally, we'd love to see as many at 3 or north of 3 as possible. You can see the staff on every question you ask, well above 3. They're feeling good about things, class time, pride in the community. Parents as well, all north of 3. And then that 75% group, non-parents, non-staff, they were a little south of 3, but the upper end, definitely well above 2.5, which is what your median is. 2.5 is your true median between 1 and 4. And given that, it's nice to see that all the scores from the non-parents, non-staff are above 2.5 on these questions. We also asked other questions. Do we provide a welcome learning environment? Do we maintain our school facilities? Do we deliver a high-quality educational experience? Do we provide college career planning, preparation? All above 2.5 in every group, and most above 3. Good indicator. And then finally, developing student character, partnering with the community, retaining high-quality staff, meeting the emotional, social needs of the students. That's where some of the scores, these are ranked, by the way, highest to lowest for the non-parents, non-staff. That's where we had some dip below the median, 2.5. And then finally, keeping the public informed. And then the lowest score came in at spending tax dollars wisely. There's some scrutiny there from the non-parents, non-staff. Staff, parents, both, again, above the median on even that. So overall, how satisfied, we asked the question, how satisfied are you with Cannon Falls area schools? 70% said they're satisfied or very satisfied, for an average score on a scale of 1 to 5 of 3.78. Nice to see that less, we have a no opinion of 12%, so only 19% are not satisfied or very unsatisfied. So then we asked them for feedback on your programs and your services. And this is where we get into some longitudinal data, because we asked these same questions previously. So we asked them two things. How valuable are these programs? And how are we doing in these programs? You'll notice as you scan the how valuable, the data is almost identical from 2020 to 2023. But in the how are we doing area, some of them took a large increase and improvement. And I made them yellow because I wanted to celebrate some of the things that Jeff said were systematic, strategic improvements that you were targeting. For example, career tech ed, which a lot of districts are doing right now. So we've got to get kids excited about the trades. We need to fill the skilled labor gap. And you've done that. They felt it was very valuable. 3.68 in 2023, 3.62 in 2020. You took a big jump. It is hard to move 0.2 of a point in 3 years, but you've done that to a 3.03 for career and tech ed. Some of the others held their own, stayed pretty static. Financial literacy, counseling services, but again, career exploration. Again, get kids out there to see skilled jobs, other jobs, work experience, to have a better idea before they leave high school about what they want to do after high school. Identical score on how valuable it is. Another 0.23 jump from 2020 to 2023. So 2 areas that surged, and both, as I talked to Jeff, were areas that the staff and administration are targeting. So nice to see there. In all the other areas, very much held their own. The only area that dipped is the visual and performing arts a bit, by 1/10 of a point, which is a bit of a dip. But Jeff and I talked about that a bit, and he has some understanding of why that may be the case too. So then, as we talk about how are we doing, what were the top areas, this is an exciting, now this is a lot, because we break it out by staff, we break it out by parents, we break it up by non-staff, non-parents. What we try to do on your behalf is really try to break this data down and simplify it. I'm looking for triangulation. I'm looking for areas that are in the top 5 in all 3 groups. And you have quite a special thing going on here in Cannon Falls, because core academics was in the top for staff, top for parents, as far as how you're doing, and even in the top 4 for the non-parents, non-staff that aren't quite as aware of what's going on in your classrooms. They're all recognizing that you're doing a great job with core academics. But at the same time, you have not let other areas fall down just because you're taking care of the core. Career and tech ed, also number 2 for all 3 populations. So you're taking care of the reading, writing, calculating, and the history, but you're also taking care of the skilled labor shortage and the awareness of engineering careers and technical careers, while also offering very respected and robust athletics and co-curricular activities. Number 1 amongst the non-parents, non-staff, and in the top 4 for parents and staff as well. So this is the graphic that really shows right now you're trying to do a lot of things. You've got a lot of different targets where you're emphasizing your time, your money, and your staffing, and your community is recognizing that you're doing a nice job. Next up, how about communication and engagement? We asked the question, how do you like to receive school and district information? The light blue bar, again, are their parents. By far, they want to hear from you through a couple of ways. They want to hear from you simply through an email or through a district newsletter, but they also read the newspaper. 1 in 3 are go to the newspaper for their school news and the website and Facebook, while also waiting on probably mobile calls about snow days and late starts and things when the snow starts to fly. Purple bar represents your non-parents, non-staff. Many of those people, you don't have their email, so it's hard to email them. But they're reading the newsletter, and they are really reading the Cannon Falls Beacon. So I think we all need to send the Cannon Falls Beacon some donuts and coffee, so they do a nice job of reporting on what's going on in Cannon Falls, because that's where people look to get their school news. But they also go to your website and Facebook. Next up, so we asked them in a number of areas, how important are they and how informed do you feel about them? First column, 2023, how important. All the scores are very similar in 2023 than to what they were in 2020. But what I'd like to showcase for you through this whole graphic is look at the surge and how informed they feel they are about those areas from 2020 to 2023. And again, just as I was trying to understand the data, Jeff and I had a nice talk about some concerted efforts you made to communicate better with the community the last 3 years. And it is clearly paying off, because if you just look at the athletic score, 7/10 higher, 0.73 higher. And safety and security, 0.551 higher. Use of technology in the classroom, research, music and the arts. Again, transportation, exact same score, 3 years apart, about how important it is, but they feel like they're being communicated with more about how transportation is going. School board meetings and the decisions you're making, huge jump. Co-curricular clubs, classroom activities, academic initiatives, special events, Hall of Fame, even school nutrition and school support services, all jumped as far as how much they know about them. Because so your efforts to communicate and educate about what you're doing in your schools is clearly paying off in the community, because they feel far more informed than they were in 2020. Volunteer opportunities, school district performance, financing, which is huge, because again, the one metric, they're kind of critical of your spending, but they feel like they understand it more, and that's the key, because unless they know how you're spending the money, pretty hard to criticize unless they hear from you. So, as far as the top 5 areas, as far as how they rank them and how informed they feel about them, again, we're looking for some overlap. Well, the one that had overlap for staff, parents, and non-parents, non-staff, all 3 categories, top 5, school safety and security, followed closely by school board meetings and decisions made by the school board, 3rd with staff, 4th with parents, 2nd with the community. And while it didn't make the list for the staff, athletics was number 1 amongst parents, non-staff. So those are the areas where they feel like you're doing a great job communicating based on the raw scores that they gave. Areas that they do not feel as informed about. But I want to caution you, this is a list of 16, so something has to be at the bottom. And in some ways, these topics maybe aren't quite as exciting or quite as easy to publicize. School nutrition towards the bottom. Career exploration opportunities for students ranked towards the bottom. And volunteer opportunities. But the reality of it is they know that you're making efforts there because they gave you high scores before as far as the improvements you made with job shadowing, career exploration opportunities. So some really good data as far as things you've done in the last 3 years, as far as communicating, prioritizing programs, and such. So I'd like to summarize the survey, and I'll take any questions that the board has for me. What did we learn tonight? We learned tonight that if held today, the community would not support a bond referendum for Project 1, the outdoor activity. That would be our projection as well. If held today, the community would not support a bond referendum for Project 1 and 2, the outdoor athletic facility and the driveway solution. Community feedback does indicate use of technology and safety are seen as areas of strength. Community feedback also indicates spending tax dollars wisely is an area for improvement, particularly amongst non-parents, non-staff. But what else could we learn? We learned core academics, career tech ed, and athletics and activities are seen as top programs and services offered by the district. We also learned that career tech ed and career exploration are programs that have had scores improved significantly since 2020. We learned that the district communication has improved basically in all areas that were rated since 2020. So your communications is definitely surging. People are way more informed than they were 3 years ago. And then as far as the highest communication scores, we just talked about these: school safety, school board meetings and decisions, and athletics. We see the highest scores. Volunteer opportunities, school nutrition, career exploration opportunities receive the lowest communication scores. So that's my summary of how things are going, kind of the state of the school district as far as your programs and services, but also the referendum question that you put in front of your community to evaluate some of the facilities needs that you were trying to address.
What was the percentage of
Any questions from
participation?
anyone on
in 2020.
Oh, hang on, I'm gonna probably have them ask the question and then I'll clarify it with you.
Sure, please do. Yep.
What was the percentage of participation in the survey in 2020?
Do we know the participation rate in 2020 or percentage? Do you have that data by chance?
You could give me a second, I can get my results for sure.
Okay.
Why don't you take another question, then I'm gonna go to,
Okay. Did you have the same question?
No, I was just helping.
Oh, okay.
How about, I think every house got one survey and one code.
Every house got one survey and one code, Darren?
correct.
But there's potentially,
Just to answer your other question, right now, as I look at 2020, 579 responses in 2020, 739, so over 250 more replies this time.
Okay.
Yes, every household got one survey. If a husband and wife disagree, and maybe, or there's an adult age child that lives with mom and dad, who's still maybe paying off some school loans, and they disagree with the household philosophy, we did deliver. We sent extra codes over to Jeff and his team in the district office, and they can take it independent of the survey that went to their home.
Is that your?
yeah, I think that's all I have, yeah.
So can you talk a little bit, Darren? I know we talked about what are some options here with that question number one at 41%. I know school perceptions. There was some data showing 15% of the non-parent, non-student needed more information.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that data
Yep.
for you because I'd like to talk about that more visually. All right, so we're going to go back to the PowerPoint. So what Jeff is referring to, as a company, there was a day when we would, and it was pre-COVID, literally every project we did prior to COVID, when we calculated this number, we would go back to this data and look at the I'm not sure, I need more information, and we could almost guarantee that you could pull 1/3 of those I'm not sure's to the side of yes. Now that does mean that 2/3 go to the no side, but let's just talk about those two big groups. 25% of parents, 25% of non-parents, non-staff, or the 75% that are non-parents, non-staff. You grab 5% or 1/3 of each of those and add that to this number, you're at 46, plus or minus 3%. Ooh, then now we're stretching our chin a little bit, saying, do we just put it to a vote anyway because it's close and it's within the margin of error? But post-COVID, we applied that philosophy to a few surveys and told boards, we think you can get that, and it did not hold true. They got 2%. They got 3%. They got less than 1/3. And so we've taken that away. The economy is suffering post-COVID. There's some frustration with schools for having shut down post-COVID. And so those statistical trends have not held true. Now this fall, right now, I'm part of 47 different surveys, just like this one, where we are putting projects before taxpayers for an April vote. And we're going to reanalyze our data in April and look at how much of that I'm not sure data pulled to the side of yes, because maybe this trend of it not really true will change. But right now, we're a little scared to tell you you could get 1/3 of votes undecided because it did not hold true this last election cycle.
So, obviously, if the vote was held today, that would be the percentages that, I believe the first question was 8.8 million. If that amount dropped, is there a way to correlate some of that or tell, scientifically or unscientifically?
Yeah, very, very hard for us to predict. All I would tell you is that what your taxpayers, I'm going to go back to that slide, costing your taxpayers have said it's either they don't agree with the project or that it's just too expensive when you talk about what it's gonna cost them across the value of their home, $126. We have found, and I experienced this myself in my school district, I had a project on our $43 million referendum that was for a performing arts center. And it was 11.5 million of the 43 million was this beautiful place for our kids to play their instruments, sing, and act, because all we had was a gym. Well, they came back and said 50-50, you're not so sure. So we went to the architect and said, hey, too costly, what can you do? And they took the balcony off, they made it stadium style, and instead of 11.5, we got it down to 9.9 million. Well, that's 55-45. So right now, I urge you as a board, not my decision, but I would tell you, if you're asking for guidance, you don't have the support. So some reduction in scope, something has to change. Otherwise, you're basically saying, well, we're gonna do it anyway. And we gave the survey, but you're gonna put it to vote anyway. You probably need to change something up in order to get the support to show that you're listening. The most important thing as school board and superintendent to do with these surveys is show that we heard you. You did that, because the last time you did that, they said they wanted more communication from you. They wanted you to prioritize the trades. You did that, and now you're getting the accolades right back, and they're recognizing the good work you did. When it comes to this ask, they've told you 8.8 million is a little steep for that outdoor activities area, and 9.9 in combination with the driveway solution is too expensive. So if you're going to prioritize either or both of these projects, you probably need to work with your vendor on what kind of scope could be reduced. Is there a way that you can get it down to 7.75 to show a real scope reduction without losing the integrity? As I maybe shared with Jeff a little bit on Friday, I worry if you take the tennis courts away, a signature item that actually you're known for. I mean, I'm a Lake City resident. I know Cannon Falls has nice tennis teams and a nice tennis facility, even though the courts are starting to decay. That's a nice spot, and you prioritize tennis. It's a nice location. You're going to put it actually in a better location. I don't think that scope can be taken away as signature part of it. But if there's any way you can trim the cost down, redesign it, because they've said it's too costly. So you want to be able to go back to them and say, we heard you loud and clear. So we've made these changes. We're going to repackage this. And then you could maybe put something to vote, but it's got to be quite a bit different. We're not talking $75,000 trim job in Pizza Beat. To just question, and that's a long answer to a fairly straightforward question, is the scope reduction has to be fairly significant. I can't tell you what that number is, but from experience, there's something psychological in my community about getting below 10 million down to that 9.9. Kind of like when you take your child to get used cars, think, oh, it just feels like a better deal. It's 9,900. 10,500. If you can get this under 8, maybe to the mid 7s, market it, explain the core of the project is still intact, but we heard you loud and clear. Show the accompanying tax impact reduction. Talk about the need. Give them the need. Say we heard you. That would be the best way to go back and still try to do this by making it small.
Hey, Darren, two things. One, did I hear you right in saying that second question with the extra driveway into the property, that actually hurt or actually wasn't as supported as question number one?
It did. Yeah, here's the data. Again, 41% for just outdoor athletics, 6.5% less for those in combination. And I don't know that that's necessarily an indictment of the driveway solution. I think it's more about
The cost?
to our other point, just too expensive. And that's an extra $1.1 million. And I think they're saying all that for to hurry along the pickup and drop off process. Now we all know that that's a safety issue, but I think for that 75%, the non-parents, non-staff, they're like, that's an awfully expensive outlet for traffic.
Right. And then my second part is there anything from the survey that we could glean to further help us answer these questions that we're kind of going through right now. I obviously, I think athletics was in the top 3 of the importance or
Yeah.
or whatever it was. And so people feel the importance of it, but they also probably, the price point isn't quite there. I will say, and this is for the board, that I think the marketing efforts and the communication efforts that we've had under our last strategic plan have paid off quite a bit, as you can see from those numbers that we're telling our story out there to the community. And I think, you know, there's always ways to improve things, but I think that's been a strategic focus, and I think it's paid off for us over that time frame from about 4 or 5 years ago, just so for those of you that are new. Any other
No, I
questions?
think the
Oh,
whole
go ahead.
thing, yeah, the whole thing is coming back to them, saying we heard you, and repackaging it at a smaller level, using the elements that gave you so much support. I've got to believe the football parents would be awfully excited to have that football field on the main campus all over the city and back on there with paying its parking, some of those things. I think this is where we kind of challenge it. Just on a call with another district on Friday, where we challenge the contractor to say, what else can we do to keep the integrity of what we're trying to accomplish here at a lower cost? Or can we do it in phases? Is there a way to do it in phases? Where we maybe get the heartbeat of the football field there and some of the parking there off the ground now? And is there any other parts that can be phased later? I don't know if that's the case, because they're all kind of dominoes. From what I recall, the parking and the tennis moving and all those things, they kind of are kind of attached to them. But I guess my first move would be to couple up with a contractor like I did at the Performing Arts Center. In hindsight, our facility is better for $1.5 million less, because we did the balcony. Sometimes people are like, balconies actually hurt the sidelines. We went to this open concept and saved $1 million to $6 million, and people like it better. Is there anything that your architect and contractors can do to redesign this? Knowing, because when pushed, they can do some things. I was just talking to a school district trying to get a field house built for $14.5 million. The architect is redoing the plans and trying to get that scope down. Athletics, I'll be honest, just testing poorly right now.
Yeah.
We've got 47 surveys out there that can do. Tech Ed is glorious. Safe and secure entrance. Scoring very high. Athletics, it's a tough economy where, the interest rates are high, building materials are high, people, cost of living is high, mortgages are through the rates are through the roof, and it's just tough. People are prioritizing certain things in school, safety, secure entrance, Tech Ed over athletics, turf, things like that.
Sure.
It might just not be the right time. So it's either reduce scope
Well,
or just maybe let the economy settle. That's not my decision, though. I'm just telling you what we're seeing without the time.
right, with us just addressing tech ed, and we already have secure entrances, if those two things are already addressed, then, I don't know,
You bet.
we'll have to have some conversations.
The next page. It's nice to see those athletic sports. It shows Cannon Falls, they love their sports. I know that as Lake City Tiger, that you're a proud community when it comes to your athletic programs, whether it's dance, whether it's tennis, whether it's football, basketball. So, like I said, they saw the tax impact. Now they're probably waiting. What's the next step?
Fair enough. Any other questions?
That was a great survey. It was very informational, and it really told us where we're at, so, thank you for that processing part. And good info for all of us.
All right.
You're very welcome. Kudos to you as a school board. The school boards are taking a beating right now on most of our surveys. So kudos to you for getting those favorable ratings when it comes to your efforts to communicate what's going on. To see that surge and to have those be towards the top of the priorities says a lot about the community and how they value these boards. Keep up the good work. Thanks for your support of Jeff, because I know it's the superintendent without the support of the board makes our job very hard. And I've heard your support of the board. So kudos to you, and I look forward to supporting you in the future when we circle back to those staff, student, and parent surveys next spring. So we'll be in touch, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darren.
Take care.
Take care.
Good night.
Well, we've touted our our academics, and it appears that, you know, the city, the community is in agreement with us. That's a good thing. We've touted our safety features and the work we've put in for our safety, and the community agrees with us. The communication piece between the board, the administration, the school district has been greatly enhanced. And again, that's was part of our plan to continue to reach out to our community and give them as much information as we possibly can about where we're going and what we've accomplished here. So there's a lot of positivity to that. And it just kind of reinforces what we've believed in the past, that our community is listening to us and for the most part supporting us. I'm not sure where our next step is as far as our facility issue, if we send that back to the facility committee.
Yeah, we could certainly do that and have a facility committee meeting and discuss maybe some different options if there are any, and if there is another recommendation to bring back forward, we could certainly do that.
Yes, I like the idea of going back to the contractor and seeing, because I can't put a number on what it's like to take a parking lot out, or, you know, I think that would help, that they can give us some numbers, and if that gets us to a more reasonable amount, maybe it's worth looking at it again.
Clint, you're on the facility, so you were very supportive of going out to our community. What do you think?
Well, everything's kind of tied together on that project, so it's kind of tough to try to figure out where you can cut some corners, cut some costs. But we're all just learning about this together tonight, so we'll set up a meeting and go to try to figure out Plan B going forward.
You know, it's important for the community to know that if they don't support artificial turf, we need to either do something out there or start planting some corn in that space.
Well,
Seriously, it does not help us in the least out there. So we should either have a Plan B in there, or we gotta do something that's absolutely necessary.
I wonder if there's a lack of information that's happening in the community as well. Like, with this popping out, I wonder how many people actually really knew about this, knew in-depth details and information about it. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder if more information could have got out, a little bit more in-depth about it, versus just the, you know, when the community came to like our ribbon cutting, you know, we answered a little bit of questions and chatted with some people about it then too. But, I mean, geez, was that maybe like the one and only time that people kind of came onto the grounds and like kind of had that kind of conversation? And then versus them getting the survey and the little blurb of information that's in there in the survey, and that's really the only information they really got. You know, I mean, you know, more information could go about the quality that's going on back there. More information maybe could have gone about, you know, this is why we're talking about the road over there. Maybe this is why this road was kind of expensive, because we're hooking on to like a highway and everything like that, or whatever, you know. And even just the basic thing, there was a lot of people that came back that did have a question and said, wait a minute, is it 8-point-something million plus 9-point-something million? You know, so there's even question about, oh my God, is it gonna be, you know, that much money and those totals together versus the grand total of 9 point whatever. So I wonder if there's a lack of information as well.
I slightly disagree with that, just with what the results were for the participation of the survey, right? With having 20% compared to 10% last time. But the community has to realize that we have a problem out back that needs to be addressed, and we have limited funds to do that. So right now we have, all of our football teams are sharing quite little space back there, that we don't even have one full regulation size field. So we'll go back to the drawing board and figure out.
Our school-age parents continue to support us, but, you know, the real conversation should lie in the people my age.
Right.
Who, that's 75% of our population. And they're very, very supportive, that group, of our academics, and have been. But, you know, the 3 R's as they can relate when they're kids is the most important to them. And I have had conversation with my peer group, and it's the academic portion that they continue to say they'll support.
Right.
But they don't have enough information, or they don't understand that turf is a very long-term solution for us. I'm not sure, but we have to deal more with the 75% than we're currently dealing with to get them on board, or at least give them enough information. Because right now, that's, you know, it's very typical for seniors to be cynical about spending more money, whether it's improvements in their roads in front of their house, or if it's our facility. But they've come to bat for us, but I think we need to really reach out to that 75% more.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that the 75% thought athletics was important, but then they also didn't support us on how we were doing in a lot of, there was really low scores there. And I thought that was interesting, and it kind of goes back to my question of, one survey went to each house. So a lot of houses with parents or staff have 2 people, 2 adults, or 1 in the home and 1 outside of the home, maybe still in Cannon Falls, whereas 65 plus, there's maybe 1 voter there. So when you're coming to a vote, do you get more to show up because you have more parents? They only took 1 survey, but they're 2 votes. Does that make sense? Like, and is that different, you know, for 65 plus, where maybe they're a widow, maybe one doesn't get around, whatever that is, and I'm not trying to put people in a box, Bob, for their age, but that's interesting to me. I think, you know, that if, maybe it looks a little different if you have two surveys come back from that group of parents that was really responded well.
And that's what, I don't want to speak for Luke, but like for myself, this plan that we came up with was based on feedback of emails and calls that we've been getting, at least since I've been on the board, of what needs to be addressed. And I felt we put a good plan forward. And obviously we got a decent amount of support, just not the number that we wanted. So we'll just have to figure out how to fine tune and get some more percentage points.
But getting usage out of that field area back there and really improving our tennis courts, I think we would agree is paramount.
Well, it's safety and accessibility. That's where, my gosh, last summer, I swear if we would have had this plan already, but done by then, and handing out flyers for everyone that has to walk 3/4 of a mile back there to watch activities, I think we maybe get more support. But we've heard from the community on how whether older population or disabled in some portion, that they don't go watch their grandkids or whatever else, because it's too far of a walk. So, and that's sad. So, so we were wanting to correct that, but so.
I do think the survey was the right thing to do.
100%.
I think it was important to ask the people in the community what they felt. I mean, we have those answers now, maybe not what we wanted, but versus just going out for a vote, and I think that was
Yeah,
the
I
right
think
call.
that was really good, because we asked them their input, not only on voting for something, but how do they feel about us as a school district? How do they feel about us? And by and large, pretty well.
Right.
Okay, so I think our next step is to go back to the drawing board, so to speak, and yeah, moving on.
And just by this little setback, this does, so everyone's aware in the community, this does put it completely off that if something was to get done, there would be 0 chance of football being played there next season, back behind. So,
Like, even practice, right? Or
Well, it does-
if something went through that for the facility, that if we were gonna go with turf, there's no chance that it would be ready by now. With the 120 day Am I correct on that,
For
Jeff?
for the review and comment with the changes the legislature this past May, they pushed the review and comments up a lot from what it was, and so realistically, the earliest we could go out would be May.
Right.
And that's not enough time to
Right.
finish it for next year.
And I misunderstood, even if we choose to do something different, like excavate, seed, that puts the timeline further out where, in order that seed to come in, we are most likely not gonna be able to play on it next.
If we had to do something even, which is getting too late now to do something right now, but even if you did something in the springtime, you wouldn't have grass that would be ready enough by the fall.
Right.
That's what you're asking.
Yep.
From my knowledge of grass.
Right.
All right, really good conversation, really good information, so we'll absorb all of it and move along. Moving on to public input. Does anyone here wish to speak to the district about anything in particular of concerns?
Just real quick, I think you guys have said everything I was gonna say, but just, we need to have a priority of improving that field back there. This fall with no rain, it was completely unusable, and we have 100 kids in our football program, and we haven't practiced on a full-size field since August. So, need to have a plan in place, whatever it is, but, so, thank you guys, I think you all recognize that, so.
Thank you, Dan. Anyone else? We will close public input, move down to approving the finance report. Josh?
Yeah, so, not a whole lot of excitement in the finance or the cash flow worksheet here. A couple things to note, you've got the bank balance on top. The 22A project reimbursement, we still are doing some cash flow shifting in order to keep as much of the funds in the Ayers bond as we can to keep earning interest off of as the project both winds down and we wrap up payments on that, but also look forward to potentially getting some projects done, knocked off of our LTFM list with interest dollars or project savings. So we'll continue to do that until the project is completely finalized and all the punch list items are done. And then we're able to look at a few items that are pretty high need. And again, not maybe items that would stick out to the normal person as it goes through the building, but definitely things that will be high impact to the facilities and the overall aesthetic of the building. The kind of about a quarter way down is the Dakota County, Guzoo County taxes. You'll see we will get our first half of the second half of property tax payments tomorrow, actually. That estimate in there is $780. We just got the actual today. It's $767, so pretty close to what was estimated. And then the second half of that usually comes about a week later, than November 4th. At the final cleanup in roughly the end of November, being December. Generally, what we'll see is maybe a slight decrease in our IDEAS payment, which is our main payment from the state for education, as it gets offset by those property taxes. In the end, all funding for the district is a combination of aid and levy. Aid generally is coming through your state IDEAS payments, the levy through your taxes. Another thing to note, and it's down there by the December 1st at 2015A, that's a debt service payment. Most of our debt service payments are set to have principal payments in February, principal and interest in February, and an interest-only payment in August. This one, because of the timing when we did the financing on it, is a little bit of an odd duck where we will have the payment come out in December. That's just shown there so we can see where we are for cash flow. In terms of other items which you may see when you look at expenditures, bus leases, most of them won't be listed specifically as a bus lease. You won't see that. It says Merchants Bank is our equipment finances where we do that, and that will be in your packet in the expenditures portion. But prior listings of this, you had seen bus lease payments. Those are now either been paid in cash or are outstanding payments, so they will show up either in the outstanding listing or in your expenditures. But what we're generally trying to do with our bus and transportation department is now I purchase a bus each year when possible, but have one on lease, and this is a part of the system we're trying to get off of so many leases. Buses typically had been around that $90,000 ballpark a couple years ago, and now post-COVID and the availability of it, it's pushed the cost up significantly. $125,000 was the last bus. In order to lease that one, the payment you'll see in the approval expenditures is about $44,000 for 1 year of a 3-year lease payment for that bus. So the cost has gone significantly higher as in other areas as well, whether it be fuel, utilities, just in general costs have gone up, and we'll have to reflect that as we do revisions of the budget going forward, which we will see probably in the January, February range, an updated revision of that. Other than that, this is what we have for the cash flow or the financial report for this month. If there are any questions, I can certainly do my best to answer.
Questions for Josh? Thank you. I would look for a motion to approve the finance report as shown.
I'll make a motion.
Jolynn on the motion,
I'll second.
seconded by Katie. Other discussion? All in favor of the finance report, say aye. Opposed? That is carried. Consent agenda. Items under the consent agenda are considered routine and will be enacted under one motion. In the event a board member wants to discuss any particular item, it can be removed from the consent agenda for separate action. We always begin with Jeff acknowledging the acceptance of gifts.
Yes, we'd like to thank these donors this month for their generous donations. $1,500 from CFYE for girls basketball equipment, $4,800 from CFYE for boys junior high basketball uniforms, 3-ring binders from the Carls family for student supplies, $110 from the Cannon Falls Bears for wiffle bats, bases, backpacks for recess, $140 from Cassie Willie for holiday decorations, $5,000 from the Nibby family foundation through Vienna Quality for PBIS, $800 from John Gardner for tools and test equipment for the Ag Department, and then the rest of these are from the Cannon Falls Ed Foundation, $13,978.77 for a Fab Lab edition for Toe Austin, $3,523.34 for Math Intervention Bridges for Miss Jackson, $3,200 for 5th grade kindness retreat from Miss Molitor, $2,742.90 for 4th grade flexible and reading seating for Miss Schleep, $1,165 for Raz Kids for Miss Larson and Miss Nelson, $950 for hands-on poetry for Miss Kopp, $400 for Spanish curriculum for Miss Kriegel Fall, and $144 for quiz, I think it's Quizlet, quiz, for Miss Davison. Thank you guys for your generous donations.
Thank you.
That's benevolence. If everyone has had an opportunity to look at the minutes, personnel items, and monthly bills, I would look for a motion to approve. If you need just a minute to look at that, you can do so as well.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Katie,
I'll second.
seconded by Luke. Further discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda as shown, say aye. Opposed? Carried. By the way, you and I had lunch to review this. You met John Gardner, one of the donators.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Good man.
Isn't that interesting? Yes.
I've known him for a very long time, very good guy.
Yeah. Okay, action items. No old business, new business, consideration to approve the 23-24 seniority list for the educators.
Would you like my report or not?
Yeah, let's do that first.
Okay. I'll be quick. School perception survey results, obviously they were here tonight. We are moving into the next step of creating our calendars for the next biennium for 24-25 and 25-26. I think we will send out another parent and staff survey to see if they wish to start school early again. We got a lot of feedback after this fall start that some parents would like to see that survey go back out again. So we will probably, it doesn't hurt to send it out to see what people's responses are to help guide our creation of the calendars. Elementary roof update on our hail claim. The hail insurance company, or the insurance company for the hail claim, still is denying this, and our lawyer has felt that we have taken all the steps that we can take reasonably with our insurance company. And we can certainly go and invest a lot more money for something that is, in the lawyer's words, kind of futile in effort at this point. Our lawyer's wife worked for insurance companies in these areas, and he said it's not impossible, but if you put a lot of money into it, you may not get the desired result that you want. So I'm going to suggest that we just move forward. We're keeping the letters for posterity's sake to say that we dispute this, and if something does happen, then we can certainly go back and revisit that. But at this point, I would recommend that we just drop that. So.
That it?
That is it.
Questions for Jeff? Now, moving forward, no old business, new business, the 23-24 teacher seniority list.
Yes, this is a yearly item. The staff has been made aware of this, and to my knowledge, there has not been any disputes. Lori, is that accurate?
No, any updates were made prior to the meeting.
Okay. So the list as is, and I do recommend approval.
Procedural in nature, correct? We do this annually?
Yes, we do this annually, and really, if we would ever need to make cuts, this is the official list that we would have to go off of if we were to make reductions. It's kind of the basis for that.
So based on contractual beginning, actually beginnings?
Yeah, yep.
Okay. I would look for a motion to approve the seniority list.
I'll make a motion.
Filled in on the motion, seconded
I'll second.
by Brian. Any other discussion? All in favor of the seniority list as shown, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve the 23-24 winter coaching list.
The coaching list is as written, and I'm assuming there might be a couple more like we have each season to be hired. I see boys basketball and girls basketball still needs a coach, but other than that, it looks to be kind of full at this point. So I do recommend approval.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Clint on the motion,
I'll second.
seconded by Luke. Any other discussion? All in favor of the approval of the winter coaching list, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consideration to approve the Minnesota State High School League resolution of governing board supporting Form A application.
Yes, this is a resolution, and this is something that we apply for each year, and the State High School League grants schools dollars to help offset student activity fees if they qualify for it. And I do recommend approving this.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Katie. Second.
I'll second.
Second by Luke. Any other discussion? Clerk, this is a resolution. Have at it.
Whereas the Minnesota State High School League Foundation was formed to provide support for the Minnesota's high school youth to participate in athletics and fine arts. Whereas the governing board of Cannon Falls area schools recognizes the value of student participation in extracurricular activities. And whereas the MSHSL Foundation is offering grants and funding to assist schools in recognizing, promoting, and funding extracurricular participation by high school students in athletic and fine arts programs. Therefore, be it resolved that the governing board of Cannon Falls area schools supports the school's application to the Minnesota State High School League Foundation for Form A, grant to offset student activity fees.
So yes vote would be for the acceptance.
Yes vote from Clinton?
Yes.
Luke?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And yes for myself as well.
Okay, that passes by a 6-0 vote. Presentation by the principals, the 23 Students' Rights and Responsibility Doc and the 23 Student Discipline Changes.
Yes, this is a presentation on the student discipline policy that was updated. There is no action required on this. This is just more managerial than anything and letting the board know basically how we're handling the student discipline changes at this point, as the policy's already been approved earlier. And so I will have the principals take it away. Do you want to start with the presentation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go to the second. So there were several changes that the legislature made that affected student discipline for all levels, elementary and secondary both. And Jeff, you may go ahead and go to the next slide. So the biggest one is non-exclusionary discipline. So when this was put through by the legislature, nobody really had a good handle on what that meant for us. But basically, it boils down to, before we suspend or expel a student, we have to attempt non-exclusionary discipline practices. And those non-exclusionary discipline practices basically are undefined in the statute. So and without a lot of guidance from MDE on what count as non-exclusionary discipline, our principals associations have basically said what you have done in the past that is not a suspension counts as non-exclusionary discipline. So it created a little bit of extra work for us, because now instead of just doing these types of things, we have to document them. But it's really not, that wasn't that big a deal. Impacts Jennifer's building quite a bit more. So we developed our list of NEDs, which will come up here in a little bit. So if you want to go to the next slide.
Oh.
Yeah, so again, we have to try these non-exclusionary discipline practices. And again, those are things that we would do in a normal kind of case. So it's basically things that we are counting are when we have our student meetings at the beginning of the year and go over the student handbook and all of our discipline policies. That counts as a non-exclusionary discipline practice. In our PBIS, when we have our PBIS meetings at the beginning of the year to talk about building expectations and classroom expectations and all of the different expectations for the areas in the school, that counts as an NED as well.
Parent communication.
Yep.
So like if a teacher reaches out to a family in regards to a behavior of a student, and then I'm also seeing the student in regards to similar behavior, those are all going to be those NEDs as well. Just a student meeting with me is also an NED, student meeting with the assistant principal, a social worker, or behavior coach, just reminding of those expectations. So there's just a lot of different things that we have to make sure we're documenting that we've taken care of before we get to the route of suspension.
And these are, again, these are things that we did. This was part of our practice. This is more of a paperwork kind of thing. MDE wants to have, they want us to report everything to them about what's going on. So that's kind of where this boils down to.
Next.
Yeah, please. This probably has more to do with Jennifer building than mine.
Oh, so definition of a dismissal. So you'll notice on one of the many pages where it goes through and talks about students in grades K through 3. In a lot of the areas, all of the areas have that star next to it. Then there's a page that talks about star options, and that just opens the door a little bit for a dismissal could be one of those. And dismissal means the denial of the current educational program to any pupil. So what this is saying is that it does not apply to less than 1 day. So if there's a situation, significant physical altercation, student to student or student to staff member, in grades K through 3, I would still be able to dismiss for up to a day. And that would count for a special education student as a suspension. And yeah, there's more to that whole thing with SPED. But These policies and practices attempted need to be included in the dismissal notice. This is a required report of these practices in response to an assault. Readmission plans only are required for exclusions or expulsions. And exclusion there means suspension, not necessarily a dismissal.
Next.
So, just piggybacking, elementary students in grades pre-K through 3 cannot be dismissed. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, because dismissed in these words right here are really meaning a suspension. Like, suspension notices sent home, the Fair Dismissal Act for families are sent home, but it's really confusing, but up to a day I can still dismiss. So only for sped students that would be counted as suspension. Exclusions and expulsions can only be done for pre-K 3 if NED has been exhausted, which at the point I would be able to say with 100% confidence those NEDs would be exhausted. It's never our goal to send students home, but if it does become a safety concern for students and staff, or students or staff, we've got major issues with that, and we need to take protocol. And that's why the star is there, because it gives some different options. So yeah.
And that's also why there's a notice of suspension that was included in this, that was changed. That has the list, that's our official list of NEDs that we will go by if we need to go into an a suspension or something beyond that.
Is that,
Should be on that.
It's in the packet, it's not in the slides, I think.
Yeah,
it's right here, right?
If you,
Yeah, it's at the
At the bottom.
end of that, so there are several pages of that. So basically, the first part of that are references to district, or to board policies. Then this grid basically shows kind of like major discipline infractions and how we will be implementing things for those major infractions. So the star in any of those are basically our non-exclusionary disciplines, and then anything after that would be suspension or potential expulsion, depending on the severity of the infraction.
and just to give you an idea, last year, I had 13 suspensions. Half of those were students in grades K through 3. So this is a small amount that we're looking at having to, MDs coming down, and this is non-negotiable, right? This is through legislation, but it's really a small amount, and I'm working really hard with my behavior team on making sure we're hitting the NEDs, and so when and if something comes up, we can be, ready for those, and our referral data right now is showing good success, knock on wood, from September of last year to September of this year. So it's really unfortunate that this was kind of mandated onto all of us, that, there are some schools, I'm sure, that have hundreds of suspensions. We don't. We're fortunate enough here that, we get a couple of situations here or there, but now to have this kind of thrown on us is a little bit tricky.
Tim, do you know the numbers in the high school for last year?
So I don't know the numbers of suspensions off the top of my head, but it was not a big number. I would, less than 20, for sure.
Yeah, it's rarely,
Yeah.
the numbers here haven't been big.
No.
Even compared to other districts that I've been in.
So there's the list of our NEDs that we are going with. Again, some of those are just things that we do at the beginning of the year, and we'll redo those periodically throughout the year as well. But some of them are kind of tried and true, age-old after-school detention. We used to call it in-school suspension. We're calling that time in office, just to get the word suspension off of that now. But Stephen and I have tried to do more lunch detentions than after-school detentions because we have so many students that ride the bus. Saturday school, we will bring back if we have to.
Breakfast club?
If I can find somebody to do it, so. And then the one last big thing with the whole discipline deal, there are some others there. This required us to create a discipline complaint form that needs to be adopted by you guys. And I believe that is in the end of the packet, so if you go flip to the very end, it's got some blank boxes. It's a pretty generic, pretty straightforward form that can be filled out by anybody who wants to file a complaint about our discipline processes. One interesting fact about that is that the legislation doesn't really say who that process, what that process looks like, who it goes to. So if we have anybody who wants to file that complaint, we'll make sure they get the form, and they can probably turn those into Jeff. I think that's a great plan for that, right, Jeff?
I didn't think stuff went up though.
So yeah, that's the major stuff. So there's really not a lot that's different, but what we decided to do, Jennifer and I typically don't put that big chart with all that stuff in our handbooks. We have it to go in there as an addendum to our handbooks, so.
So we'll get that in there as a link.
Yep.
What falls under the category of if we have to make a recommendation for a student to go to like our first school in Red Wing?
For a special education
Mhm.
student? Well,
Where category does that kind of fall into in here? I
So
don't know
that
if I saw it as a-
that wouldn't fall under a discipline.
That's
If
more
we were ma-
special ed procedural.
Yeah, if we were making a
Process.
recommendation for like a student to move to a setting 4, it would be part of the IEP team
Okay.
process. It might be, some of it might be determined based on behavior, but we wouldn't call that a discipline.
there are
procedure.
some behaviors that will warrant a certain amount of days placement immediately,
Mhm.
but that referral process is a pretty lengthy one, and I'm looking back here. Because our special education students in Cannon Falls Elementary School are gonna be setting 1 or 2, correct? Right?
Some of them.
Okay, so we have some in setting 3, but we need to go in that kind of natural order.
Mhm.
So you can't take a student who just has a single behavior and whoop, now we're gonna make a recommendation there.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of data tracking, and it's a lot of just making sure that we are communicating home and updating all of the SPED information. We have a behavior team that comes in from GCD that analyzes and observes and gives feedback to teachers. And then after that's done, it's a lot of different little steps that go into that, so.
Just kind of what made me kind of think of it is, for example, on here, aggravated assault, right? So assault upon another person with a weapon or device used as a weapon. Grades kindergarten through 3rd grade, stars across the board. So no other discipline necessarily is happening for a 3rd grader if they were to bring a gun into the school and
That's
use it.
different.
Yep.
So-
I feel,
Back in these slides, it talks about, we can still discipline students even through expulsion, but you have to go through the NEDs first. And then it's saying that we can't, there's still a process to remove
Okay.
children that are of immediate threats, I
Mhm.
believe was the language.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
yes.
if
Whole different
you
ball,
yeah.
assault somebody with a weapon, we have to exhaust all the NEDs, and if there's an ongoing threat with that student, then we can suspend or expel.
and those, yeah.
And in that grid there, some of them are similar, but there might be specific language that firearms might be included in one but not the other. So we found some of that too as we were reading through it all, that some of them were.
Yeah,
Yeah, but very, very similarly, inflicting bodily harm,
correct.
K through 12 is, there's nothing that can be done from one instance.
For K through 3,
K
did you mean?
K through 12, if there's one, what do you call it? One offense, it's actually
For which category are you looking at?
for inflicting bodily harm.
Inflict-
K through 12, on a one-time offense, there's no suspension that can happen.
I think that goes to the severity
Yeah.
of it, whether you're flicking somebody's head versus.
And so then
How
who would
often?
determine the severity? I mean,
That would be us.
yeah, and going back, I thank you for presenting and thank you for taking a positive outlook on this, because I know this is being forced down, and I personally don't think that St. Paul has any business, or a Capital has any business telling you guys how to do your job, because I think you do it well. Some of this is, I think, setting up our teachers for dealing with repeated behaviors, because we know it's worked in the past, and now they're gonna potentially get that same student coming into the building after every offense, and also, I can't help but think about that third grader that is gonna see that person again the next day, and day after day, if it's K through 3. And I know there's nothing we can do about it, so thank you for taking a positive spin on this, but to
Well, I
me,
think, you know, while this is the guidelines that we go by, this does not lock us into making any specific decisions. So the grid is there for students and parents to know what potentially could happen.
That there's a guideline.
But there is a statement in there that says that if we feel the need to do something else, we can do that.
And,
So
you know,
that's the one thing that I've always had a problem with grid-style discipline like this,
Right.
because it's not just a, you
It's
did
never
this,
cookie cutter.
you go to this.
That's great.
But very clearly in that first part of the document, it gives administration the latitude to make some different decisions if we deem it
Yeah, so I don't want you to worry so much about that star, but that star just is, it's extremely gray, and it's extremely gray for a reason. And, you know, I mean, a student who's had inflicted bodily harm, I mean, I think we need to look at the degree of that, but, I mean, I'm looking out for that student it was inflicted on. And I don't think they should have to see that student, so there's gonna be an alternative placement. You know, I mean, if we have some sort of pattern with the physicalities, especially against students, we're working that star to our advantage. That's just what I'm gonna say.
And even the grade bands, how I respond to something that happens with a 6th grader is different than I do with an 8th grader. And it is with a 9th grader and a 12th grader. So that's why all of those kind of leave ranges in there, is because it gives us the ability to make decisions based on the individual incident that comes up.
and I agree, and I just think this document is gonna be seen by parents, and they're gonna say, what grade, or who's deciding this gray area? You know, like bullying, grades 4 through 5 were potentially is the worst ages for that to maybe happen. Second offense, nothing, they're gonna read this as, it's a star, nothing, you can't tell my kid not to come to school. And that's my concern.
Yeah,
that's
and this star,
something you're gonna
grades
have-
4 to 5, I mean, that is well open to, we're out the door here. So I'm really, your support and understanding means a ton. But I'm pretty confident in this and where our behavior data is going, and we're just gonna have to make sure we're documenting, and I don't want staff or students in harm's way ever. So,
Yeah, because God forbid it turns into a system where we're just documenting repeatedly, but not necessarily having
Yeah,
consequences.
the thing to keep in mind is what you see in that grid are by far worst-case scenarios. We don't see that
Yeah.
behaviors of students, but it's there if we do have to get to that point. So-
And as one thing, as Tim mentioned earlier, with the NEDs that we cover at the beginning of the year, the classroom PBIS meetings, the ramp-up meetings up here, the handbook reviews that the principals do, we can suspend students already based on that now, if we need
Yes.
to. Those are NEDs that have been in place already. We couldn't, if we didn't do those things, then we could. So we could already suspend tomorrow if something happened for the first time with one student, because we have used those NEDs already.
Does in-school suspension, does that fall under this chart as well, or is that part of basically NED?
We're using it as an NED, so we count it, like I said, we call it time in office, whatever, you know.
Instead of ISS, it's
But-
TIO now.
What's that?
Instead of ISS, it's TIO.
Yes.
And sometimes that's
So-
just 1 hour or 2 to give a kid a break from PE, because
We
Then
use
less structured
that,
time they get
we use
ramped
that
up.
a lot of times as like an hour.
Okay.
You know, if a teacher requests you not to be in class the next day because you created a big problem the day before, that's time in office.
my biggest thing is I wanna make sure we're supporting our teachers, our staff, our administration, and when I look at this, it doesn't necessarily feel like we are.
Yeah, none of us had real warm fuzzies putting that thing together, but I think it's necessary. And Jennifer knows this because she's been working with you long enough. I hate documents like that because it feels like they lock you into something, but they really don't. We write the practice and policy in there so that we have some latitude if we need it. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Thank you. And I appreciate your editorializing on this to make it real for all of us. Okay, that essentially ends our meeting for this evening, and as you can see what other informational items we have for the upcoming, you can read them for yourselves. And in closing, I just want to reach out, Jeff, is that we had some brief conversation after the open house about the usage of some of our facilities. And what a great lunch area and bathroom facility we have out in the back.
The concession stand.
Yeah, I hope we can have some conversation about its usage, its propriety, how we can get greater use out of it, possibility, in an upcoming meeting. Because, I think that was, the first thing they had to do was probably clean off the dust, because it doesn't get used very much. And can we use it more? Should we use it more? In the bathroom facilities as well, but we'll leave that to another meeting. So just kind of a heads up.
Okay.
So, you see what's going on. If anyone has anything for the cause for the upcoming meeting, please contact Lori or Jeff, and we can see if it's proper to put it on our board for the next meeting. Having said that, if we're all finished here, I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Julian on the motion. Seconded by
Go ahead.
Luke will second.
Luke will second. Any other discussion? All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are finished. Thank you.